The Alpha King didn't interrupt. He didn't defend her. He didn't stop them because the moment they finished talking, it was already too late. Ella stood in the center of the council hall while the pack decided whether she deserved to exist. Stone pillars towered above her, carved with the laws of the wolves, laws written centuries ago by blood-pure alphas who had never imagined someone like her would one day stand here. Torches crackled along the walls, their flames snapping and hissing as if they, too, were eager to witness her fall. Silver-threaded restraints fit into her wrists. Not because she was dangerous, but because they feared what they didn't understand. She's too weak. The words echoed through the hall, sharp and merciless. Ella didn't look down. She refused to give them that satisfaction. Her spine stayed straight, chin lifted, even as the insult scraped across old wounds that had never fully healed. An elder stepped forward, his voice heavy with authority and disgust. Weaken body, weaken blood, weaken spirit. A half-born girl with diluted human lineage has no place beside our Alpha King. A low murmur spread through the pack like a sickness. Warriors leaned on their weapons, eyes cold and appraising. Noble she-wolves whispered behind clawed fingers, already imagining who might replace her. Some didn't even bother to hide their smiles. Ella breathed slowly, carefully. In. Out. The air tasted of ash, sweat, and judgment. At the far end of the hall sat Roman, the Alpha King. He lounged on the obsidian throne as if this were nothing more than an evening spectacle. One arm rested along the carved stone, fingers relaxed, posture loose, but his presence pressed down on the room like a storm cloud waiting to break. He had said nothing. Not when they dragged her in. Not when they bound her. Not when they began to tear her apart piece by piece. He simply watched. Golden eyes tracked every speaker, every sneer, every lie dressed up as concern for the pack's future. Ella's gaze flickered to him despite herself. Say something, a small, traitorous part of her begged. Please. But Roman remained silent. She faints during training, another council member continued, circling her slowly like a vulture. Her wolf barely surfaces. She bleeds too easily. How can such a creature survive bearing an alpha heir? A cruel laugh rang out. Banish her. She'll shame us. Choose a stronger mate. The words slammed into her from every direction, a barrage meant to crush whatever pride she had left. Ella felt it then, that familiar pressure building behind her eyes. A low hum in her skull. A warning. Not now, she told herself fiercely. You promised. You swore you wouldn't. Her fingers curled into her palms, nails biting skin. The restraints shimmered faintly as if reacting to something beneath the surface, something restless. If you're listening to this right now, pause for half a second and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because this moment, this is where everything changes. The chanting finally died. Silence fell again, thicker than before. All eyes turned to the throne. Roman stood. The sound of his boots against the stone was soft, but it silenced the room completely. Elders straightened. Warriors stiffened. Every wolf bowed their head instinctively as the alpha descended the steps. He stopped in front of Ella. Close enough that she could smell him, pine smoke and cold night air. Close enough that his shadow swallowed her whole. For one terrible heartbeat, she thought he might condemn her too. Instead, Roman turned slowly to face the council. And smiled. It wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile that preceded ruin. You're right, he said calmly. Relief flickered across several faces. Satisfaction bloomed. Ella's chest tightened as something inside her cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to hurt. She is weak, Roman continued. Then his eyes sharpened. Which is why it took her only seconds, he said, voice dropping, deadly soft, to break each of your minds while you stood here judging her. The hall froze. Confusion rippled through the pack, then fear. Elders staggered back, clutching their heads as invisible pressure slammed into their thoughts. Warriors gasped, dropping to their knees. Blood trickled from noses. Screams tore through the air. Ella sucked in a breath. She hadn't meant to release it, but they had pushed her too far. The silver restraint snapped like thread. Ella lifted her head. Her eyes glowed, not gold, not amber, something deeper, older. And as terror finally bloomed across the faces of the pack, one truth became impossible to deny. They hadn't been judging a weak mate. They had been standing inside her trap. Speech balloon, quick question for you. If you were in that hall, would you have spoken up or stayed silent like the rest? Drop your answer in the comments and make sure you're subscribed, because the stage reveals who Ella truly is, why Roman chose her, and what secret the pack was never meant to uncover. Ella had learned silence long before the pack ever tried to break her. As the council hall reeled under the aftermath of her released power, elders gasping, warriors trembling, the air vibrating with psychic pressure, she stood very still, heart pounding not with triumph, but with fear. Not of them. Of herself. She hadn't meant to let it out. She never did. Every time it slipped, it reminded her why she'd spent her entire life pretending to be small. Roman's presence anchored her. She felt him before he touched her, felt the way his attention wrapped around her like a shield, steady and unyielding. When his hand finally closed around her wrist, it wasn't to restrain her. It was grounding. Breathe, he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. Ella obeyed. In. Out. The pressure eased, like a tide slowly retreating. Around them, the pack stared in stunned silence. They weren't seeing weakness anymore. They were seeing something they didn't have a name for. Ella hadn't always lived among wolves. She'd been born in a border village at the edge of pack territory, human lands where whispers of monsters filled bedtime stories. Her mother had been human. Soft-voiced. Warm. The kind of woman who hummed while cooking and kissed scraped knees like they were the end of the world. Her father had been a wolf. A secret. A mistake. When her abilities first surfaced, she'd been 6. A boy had shoved her into the dirt, laughing when she cried. Something in her head had snapped, and the boy collapsed screaming, clutching his skull as blood poured from his nose. The village elders had called her cursed. Her mother had called her gifted. But gifts, Ella learned quickly, were only welcome when they were convenient. By the time the pack found her, she already knew how to hide. How to soften her gaze. How to stumble during training. How to bleed just enough to look fragile. Weakness kept you alive. Weakness kept you underestimated. That lesson echoed now as she faced the council, their terror finally replacing contempt. She deceived us, one elder rasped, still on his knees. She hid this power. Roman's hand tightened slightly around Ella's wrist. She survived you, he corrected coldly. There's a difference. The Alpha King had noticed her the moment she crossed into Packlands 3 years ago. Not because of her scent, though it was different, layered with something that didn't belong to wolf or human. Not because of her appearance, slight frame, quiet eyes, always half a step behind. But because when she looked at him, she didn't submit. She assessed. Roman had ruled long enough to recognize predators who pretended to be prey. Their bond hadn't formed in a blaze of fireworks. It had formed in silence. In long conversations by the training grounds after midnight. In the way Ella listened, not just to words, but to what lived beneath them. In the way she never asked him to be gentler, never flinched from the darkness of his authority. Still, even Roman hadn't known the full truth. Not until now. Ella felt his gaze on her, sharp, searching, not accusatory, but curious. How much more are you hiding? It seemed to ask. The answer terrified her. Because the power she'd released today was only the surface. And the pack wasn't the only thing watching. Far beyond the council hall, something ancient stirred, drawn by the echo of her mind touching so many others at once. Ella swallowed, her fingers trembling as she curled them against her side. If the pack learned what she truly was, they wouldn't just fear her. They would hunt her. Roman turned back to the council, voice ringing with finality. This trial is over. But the law, an elder began. I am the law, Roman snapped, dominance crashing through the hall like thunder. He faced Ella again, lowering his voice. And this conversation isn't finished. Not judgment. Not rejection. A promise. As Roman led her from the hall, Ella felt the weight of hundreds of eyes burning into her back, no longer mocking. Watching. Waiting. And somewhere deep inside her, the quiet hum began again, stronger this time. The chill of the night clung to Ella as she followed Roman out of the council hall, her body still humming with residual energy. Even under the moonlight that spilled across the pack grounds, her skin seemed to crackle with the memory of power she had barely controlled, yet somehow unleashed with perfect precision. She had always known that power would mark her, that someday it would either save her or damn her. Roman's hand rested lightly on her back, the kind of touch that promised both protection and ownership. Yet it carried an unspoken question. How much of this can you control, Ella? How far will you let this go? She could feel the weight of his eyes on her shoulder, like a chain of molten gold, pulling her toward him even when her instincts screamed to run. The pack grounds were silent now. The chaos of the council hall had ended, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant howl of a lone wolf. The torches lining the path flickered as if uncertain, as if sensing that something was about to shift irreversibly. Ella's mind swirled with images of the council's faces, the horror in their eyes, the shock, the disbelief. Their judgment had been a performance, but her response had been real. And now the consequences were about to arrive. Roman's voice cut through the tension, deep and steady, yet tinged with a rare edge of something wild. You've revealed more than you realize, he said, his golden eyes glinting in the moonlight. And now some of them will not forgive you. Ella's stomach clenched. Forgive me? For what? Her voice was hoarse, but firm. For surviving? He stopped and turned to face her fully, the moonlight framing the sharp angles of his face. For exposing the pack to a truth they are not prepared to face. For reminding them that their laws, their traditions, their so-called strength are fragile. And you have blood or not, you just showed them that fragility is a lie. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. She had always known the pack would never fully accept her. Her human blood, her different lineage, her abilities, all had been weapons in the wrong hands. And yet, standing here, with Roman beside her, she felt a dangerous thrill coursing through her veins. It was the same thrill that had always driven her to hide, to survive, to push beyond limits no one expected her to reach. A sudden rustle from the nearby trees drew her attention. Her instincts flared, sharp, immediate, primal. Roman's hand went to the hilt of his blade, but he didn't move forward. He trusted her to sense what she needed to sense. And she did. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Lean, fast, with eyes that glowed faintly in the darkness. A wolf shifter, no doubt, but something about the way he moved, calculating and deliberate, set her nerves on edge. Roman's eyes narrowed, recognizing the intruder instantly. Ella noticed the tension in his shoulders, the subtle shift of weight that signaled danger. "Who's there?" Roman demanded, his voice like ice sliding across steel. The figure stepped forward, revealing a tall male with silver hair, sharp cheekbones, and a predatory grin. His presence radiated arrogance and menace, and Ella felt the hum of magic or power she couldn't fully place. He was no ordinary shifter. He was a hunter, or something close enough to one to be dangerous. "You're far from home," Little half-blood, the stranger said, voice smooth, dangerous. And the Alpha King trusts his mate to walk among fools, foolishly. Ella felt a wave of unease. His words were a challenge, a direct provocation. And yet, there was a thread of recognition. He knew of her, her abilities, or at least suspected them. That recognition was dangerous. Knowledge like that could be exploited. She could feel it in her bones, that this encounter was not random. Roman's hand tightened on her back. Step aside, he said calmly, though the underlying growl was unmistakable. Or leave and survive. Your choice. The stranger tilted his head, studying her with sharp, cold eyes. Interesting, he said softly. You're the one they called weak. Yet the Alpha King himself seems fascinated. Ella bristled at his words, instinctively stepping forward. I am not weak, she said, her voice rising. And you should leave before I prove it. The stranger's grin widened, almost enjoying her defiance. Oh, I believe you, he said, more than you realize. But proving it comes at a cost, doesn't it? A cost you haven't yet paid. Before Ella could respond, Roman moved. In a fluid motion, his hand shot out, grabbing the stranger by the collar. The distance between them vanished in an instant. Roman's presence was overwhelming, suffocating almost, a living shield of power. You test me at your peril, he said, voice low and dangerous. One step further, and you will regret it. The stranger's eyes flicked to Ella, scanning her, calculating. Then, without another word, he melted back into the shadows, leaving nothing but the echo of his presence and the scent of danger lingering in the air. Roman released his grip and turned to her, expression unreadable. You feel that? He asked. That was no random predator. He knows of you. Knows what you can do. And he's not the only one. Ella's stomach dropped. Not the only one, she echoed, dread creeping in. She had always known that her abilities made her a target, but she had hoped that surviving the council, surviving the Alpha King's judgment, would grant her a moment of peace. That hope evaporated like mist under the rising sun. Roman's gaze softened briefly as he reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. You're stronger than you know, he said, almost gently. But strength is not enough. You need control, discipline, and allies. Ella's heart fluttered at his touch. The world felt simultaneously heavy and weightless, danger and desire, fear and something else, unspoken and hot, coiled like fire in her chest. She had never felt anything like this. The bond between them was more than instinct, more than alpha and mate. It was a tether of power, of shared destiny. And she could feel it stretching, pulling, demanding she rise to meet it. Roman stepped back, letting her move forward. Come, he said. We need to prepare. He won't be the last. The weight of his words hit her harder than any blow. He hadn't told her to hide, to run, or to submit. He had told her to rise. And in that moment, Ella knew that her journey was about to spiral into something far beyond anything she had imagined. The next morning, the council grounds were alive with whispers. Even after the stranger's departure, his presence lingered like smoke. The pack shivered at the thought that someone had dared challenge their alpha, and worse, that someone had been studying her. The whispers questioned her, doubted her, and plotted against her. And yet, they had all witnessed the raw force she had released in the hall, and no one dared confront her directly. Fear had replaced scorn. Respect, perhaps. Or maybe only recognition of danger. Ella walked beside Roman through the forested paths, training grounds, and stone-built corridors of the Alpha territory. The wind tugged at her hair, cold and biting, yet somehow exhilarating. Every step she took reminded her of her fragile human form. Every glance at Roman reminded her that the fragile form was a lie, one that concealed a tempest waiting to be unleashed. Their journey through the woods was silent for a time, filled with only the sound of leaves brushing against each other, distant howls, and the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. Ella's mind raced with possibilities. Who was this silver-haired stranger? Why had he singled her out? Was he part of a rival pack? A rogue? Or someone more sinister, lurking in the shadows, waiting to exploit her power? Roman broke the silence finally, voice low and measured. You need to know, he said, that some of the pack may never accept what you are. But your strength, our bond, it will protect you. For now. Ella's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that bond. And yet, the nagging fear clawed at her, whispering that the danger was only beginning. She glanced at him, eyes wide, heart pounding. And what if I can't control it next time? Roman's expression softened, almost imperceptibly, but the intensity of his gaze never wavered. Then I will stand beside you. Not to control you, but to ensure the world survives. Ella felt a shiver run through her. His words were a promise, a warning, and a challenge all at once. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was stepping into something far bigger, something that could either consume her or elevate her beyond anything she had ever imagined. And as they emerged from the forested shadows into the open plains beyond the pack territory, a howl pierced the night, a sound filled with both warning and invitation. Ella's pulse quickened. She knew instinctively that the hunt had begun, and she was no longer the prey. She was a force in her own right. Roman's hand found hers again, warm and firm. Stay close, he said. We face this together. Ella nodded, determination flaring within her. Fear still lingered, a constant shadow. But for the first time, she welcomed it. Because fear was a tool now, a weapon. And if she learned to master it, she could bend the world to her will. The morning sun spilled over the jagged peaks of the pack territory, brushing the dense forest in streaks of gold and fire. Ella had never seen anything so beautiful, yet her focus was nowhere near the landscape. Every nerve in her body was alert. The events of the council and the stranger's appearance the night before had left an indelible mark. Something dangerous was looming, and she could feel it clawing at the edges of her mind. Roman walked beside her, ever the silent guardian, yet every movement he made radiated authority. His presence pressed against her, protective yet demanding. The bond between them pulsed with electricity, subtle yet undeniable. Every glance, every accidental brush of his fingers sent a tremor through her, igniting emotions she had spent years suppressing. She had thought she understood power. She had thought she could hide behind a fragile exterior. But walking beside Roman now, she realized her strength had another dimension, one she was only beginning to comprehend. It was intertwined with him, and yet entirely her own. They arrived at the training grounds, a clearing surrounded by thick trees, the earth worn from centuries of paw prints and battle scars. Wolves of all ranks were present, some curious, some wary, all watching. The tension was palpable. Ella felt their gazes measured and sharp, like knives cutting into her skin. Roman stopped in the center and turned to her. Today you train. But this isn't about skill. This is about control. Her stomach tightened. Training had never been simple, especially under Roman scrutiny, but now it carried a deeper weight. This was not only about mastering her abilities, it was about proving herself to the pack and, most importantly, to herself. Ella nodded, drawing in a steady breath. I'm ready, she said, though doubt licked at the edges of her courage. Roman's gaze softened slightly, and he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The gesture was small, intimate, and yet it set her heart racing. She forced herself to look away, aware of how his nearness affected her. Remember, he murmured, control is everything. Too much emotion, too much fear, and it will control you. The exercise began with Roman's wolves, trained shifters who had mastered their abilities. They moved with precision, challenging Ella with coordinated attacks that tested not only her reflexes, but her mind. Every movement was a dance of survival and instinct. At first, she faltered. Her human form felt inadequate. Her wolf, sluggish and unfamiliar, struggled to sync with her intent. The pack watched silently, and the weight of their judgment pressed down like an invisible hand. But then she remembered the council hall, the fear she had inflicted without thinking, and the words Roman had spoken. Your strength, our bond, it will protect you. For now. Drawing on that, she let go. Not control, not yet, but instinct. Her body moved faster, reacting before she fully processed. She shifted partially, her wolf rising in flashes, speed and strength amplifying her movements. She dodged, struck, and countered with fluid precision, leaving her opponents stunned. The pack murmured. Some feared her. Some admired her. But none dared approach. Roman's eyes gleamed, a mixture of pride and warning. Good, he said, voice low. But you must not tire. Control, Ella. Control. Later, as she caught her breath at the edge of the clearing, a rustle in the underbrush made her stiffen. The silver-haired stranger from last night emerged again, moving with the same predator-like grace. This time, he wasn't alone. Two others accompanied him, equally dangerous and equally silent. Ella's wolf instincts flared, warning her. She tensed, ready to shift, but Roman's hand on her shoulder held her back. Let me handle this, he said. His gaze was lethal, and the stranger's grin faltered. You're persistent, the stranger said, voice dripping with amusement. But she is impressive. His eyes lingered on Ella, scanning, measuring. Your mate has a temper. I like that. Roman didn't reply. His presence alone was a barrier, a wall of authority that pushed the intruders back. Yet the tension was undeniable. Ella could sense the stranger's fascination and his intent. This wasn't merely an encounter. This was a test. Her pulse quickened. The danger was real, but so was the thrill. She had always lived in the shadows, feared and underestimated. Now she was stepping into the light, and it was intoxicating. Romantic tension builds. As the intruders withdrew, Roman turned to her. The air between them was thick, charged with unspoken emotion. He stepped closer, just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. You are extraordinary, he said softly. His hand hovered near hers, brushing accidentally as he gestured toward the trees. The contact lingered longer than necessary, sending shivers through her body. Ella swallowed hard, heart pounding. I'm not done, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Her mind struggled to reconcile the danger, the adrenaline, and the heat of his presence. Roman's lips curved into a faint smile. I know. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The world narrowed to the space between them, the slight brush of fingers, the warmth of his gaze, the undeniable pull of their bond. She could feel it tugging at her, urging her closer, daring her to surrender. And yet, danger still loomed. The silver-haired stranger was out there, plotting. The pack was watching, judging, calculating. Every moment of vulnerability was a risk. Roman led her deeper into the forest, away from prying eyes. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across the ground. Here, away from the pack, he began a different kind of training, one of trust and connection. You need to synchronize with me, he said. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. Your power is tied to your control, but your control is tied to trust. Trust in yourself and in me. Ella nodded, struggling to breathe normally. The intimacy of the moment, the closeness, the warmth of his hand, made her pulse race. She felt raw, exposed, yet stronger than ever before. They began a series of exercises, shifting partially, sensing each other's movements, reacting instinctively. Every touch, every glance, every shared thought heightened their connection. The danger in the world faded for these moments, replaced by a charged intimacy that neither had fully allowed themselves to explore. Ella's wolf stirred, hungry for connection, for strength. Roman's wolf responded in kind, protective, and dominant. Their bond became a dance, one of power, trust, and desire. And yet, as thrilling as it was, a shadow lingered, an awareness that every moment of closeness was a risk. The stranger's presence, the pack's scrutiny, and her own hidden power were all variables that could explode at any second. As they rested under a giant oak, Roman's expression darkened. "Not everyone in the pack will be loyal," he said, voice low. "Some may see your abilities as a threat. Some may see opportunities." Ella felt a chill run down her spine. She had survived so much, hidden so much, but the realization that danger could come from within the pack, people she thought were allies, was terrifying. "Who?" she asked, breathless. "Who could betray us?" Roman didn't answer immediately. He merely watched her, expression unreadable. "Time will tell," he said finally. "But you must be ready. And so must I." The warning lingered, heavy in the air. Their training, their bond, their growing feelings, everything was now under a shadow of uncertainty. Trust would be tested, strength would be pushed, and hearts would be challenged in ways neither of them could fully anticipate. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting the forest in gold and shadow, Ella felt the pull of destiny like never before. The pack, the stranger, the powers she barely controlled, and her connection with Roman, everything was converging toward a point of inevitable collision. She clenched her fists, drawing strength from the warmth of Roman's hand, from the fire in her own chest. She had survived the council. She had survived exposure. She had faced the stranger once. And she would face him again, stronger, smarter, and with Roman at her side. But the night would bring challenges no training could prepare her for, threats that would test not only her power but her heart. And somewhere in the shadows, the silver-haired stranger was waiting, smiling, knowing that the game had only just begun. The night descended on the pack territory like a predator stalking its prey, velvet dark and suffocating. The forest was alive with rustling leaves, distant howls, and the faint smell of smoke from the torches that still burned at the training grounds. Yet Ella felt the danger before she saw it. Something primal stirred in the shadows, a presence so deliberate and measured that even her wolf instincts bristled in alarm. Roman walked beside her, silent and alert, his golden eyes scanning the darkness. The bond between them pulsed stronger tonight, a tether of power, trust, and something unspoken. Their hands brushed occasionally, a spark igniting every time, yet neither dared to fully acknowledge it. Tonight was not for tenderness. Tonight was for survival and revelations that would change everything. An unexpected messenger. From the edge of the clearing, a figure emerged. Cloaked, hooded, moving with deliberate stealth. Ella tensed immediately, every muscle coiled. Roman's hand instinctively went to the hilt of his blade, but the tension in his stance suggested something more, calculation, not aggression. The figure stopped a few yards away and threw back the hood. Ella froze. It was Kara, one of the council's youngest advisors, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. She had always been quiet, observant, but the fear radiating from her now was tangible, as if she carried a secret that could topple kingdoms. "Ella." "Roman," Kara gasped, clutching a folded parchment against her chest. Her hands shook. It's urgent. You need to see this." Roman's eyes narrowed. "Speak," he said, voice a low growl, controlled yet dangerous. Kara unfolded the parchment with trembling fingers. The wax seal of a rival pack marked the corner, and the symbol scrawled across it sent a chill down Ella's spine. The ink glowed faintly, enchanted. It wasn't just a message, it was a threat. And more than that, it was personal. You need to know the truth, Kara whispered, glancing at Ella as if begging her to listen. About your bloodline. About the alpha heir. About what the stranger wants. Ella's heart slammed against her ribs. She took the parchment, her hands shaking despite Roman's protective grip around her waist. As she read the message, the world seemed to tilt, as if the ground itself had betrayed her. The stranger, the silver-haired man, was no ordinary predator. He was a blood hunter, a rogue sent by a rival pack that had been watching her family for generations. Her human mother had been marked, hunted, and experimented upon. Her wolf father had tried to protect her, but some of their enemies had survived, and now they were back. Her heart raced, mind spinning. This wasn't random. The council, the pack's disdain, the stranger's fascination, it had all been orchestrated. They weren't testing her. They were isolating her. They were trying to force her into a position where she would be vulnerable, alone, exposed. And the heir? Ella asked, voice trembling. Her eyes met Roman's, desperate for clarity. Roman's jaw tightened. Your bond with me, with the pack, has made you a target, he said. The heir isn't just a title. It's a key. To power, to territory, to everything we have. That stranger, he's been waiting for someone like you to misstep. To weaken. To fail. Ella felt the weight of every sneer, every insult, every whispered weak from the council echo in her mind. They hadn't been wrong. She was weak, in their eyes. But now she understood that weakness was exactly what they had misjudged. Strength, true strength, had always been her own, hidden, waiting for the right moment. Kara hesitated, lips quivering. There's more, she said. One of your own, one of the council, is feeding him information. Every training session, every movement, every plan. They want you out. They want the Alpha King weakened. Ella's wolf flared. Anger and fury surged through her. Her bloodline, her life, her bond with Roman, they were all at risk because someone she trusted had been betraying her. Every instinct screamed to strike, to hunt, to protect, yet she forced herself to remain calm. Not here. Not yet. She needed control. Roman's hand on hers reminded her of that. Roman's eyes narrowed, a storm behind the golden gaze. We will find them, he said, low and dangerous. And when we do, they will regret ever setting foot in this territory. The revelation hung between them, heavy as the night itself. Ella's mind raced with danger, betrayal, and the looming threat of the blood hunter. And yet, Roman's presence was magnetic, anchoring her. His hand tightened around hers, not just for protection, but as a silent promise. They had faced death together, fear together, and now revelation. Their eyes met. His golden gaze softened just enough for her to see vulnerability, trust, and something deeper, something she had never dared to acknowledge. Desire. Protection. Love. Ella's chest fluttered. She wanted to lean into him, to feel the heat of his body close against hers, to surrender to the bond that had always pulsed between them. She wanted to let go of fear, even if just for a moment. Roman's voice broke through her thoughts, low and intimate. You are not alone. Not now. Not ever. Do you understand? Yes, she whispered, voice trembling. I understand. And in that moment, their proximity, their shared fear and determination, made something undeniable spark, a connection of fire and power, unspoken and raw. It was dangerous, intoxicating, and entirely theirs. The silver-haired stranger was not idle. That night, his presence was felt again, an arrow found in the clearing near her quarters, an unmarked paw print smeared in ash, a whisper of movement in the dark. It was a message, I am coming for you. Roman sensed it first. His wolf flared, primal and protective, sending shivers down Ella's spine. He's close, Roman said. Closer than you think. And he's not the only one. The pack's traitor is watching, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Ella's stomach clenched. Fear and adrenaline mixed into something wild and powerful. She had faced threats before, yes, but this was different. The stakes were higher, personal. And the knowledge that someone had betrayed her from within, it stung deeper than any strike from an enemy outside. "Then we prepare," she said, voice hardening with resolve. "We won't give him a chance." Roman's hand brushed her face, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. The intimacy of the gesture made her heart race, yet steeled her determination. "Good," he said. "We fight together. Always." As dawn approached, the forest seemed to breathe with anticipation. Shadows moved differently now, sounds were sharper, scents more pronounced. Every wolf, every shifter, every predator and prey in the area seemed to sense that a new era had begun, a dangerous era, one that Ella was at the center of. Her heart pounded. Her wolf rumbled low in her chest. And through the haze of fear, adrenaline, and raw power, one thought pulsed clearly: she was ready. She had to be. Roman's presence at her side was both shield and fire, and the bond between them was no longer just survival. It was a weapon, a force that could turn the tide. Together, they would face the traitor, the blood hunter, and the pack stout. Together, they would survive. Together, they would rise. But as the first light of morning crept over the horizon, Ella understood something chilling. This was only the beginning. The true game had begun, and no one, not her, not Roman, not even the pack, was prepared for what was coming next. The night was suffocating. Thick fog rolled over the pack territory, swallowing the moonlight and muting the forest. Every sound seemed amplified, branches snapping under unseen paws, distant howls echoing like warnings, the faint rustle of leaves carrying threats too close to ignore. Ella moved cautiously, senses stretched taut, every nerve screaming danger. Her wolf surged beneath her skin, restless and impatient, matching the tension coiling in her chest. She could feel it, something approaching, something calculated, something intent on destroying everything she had built. Roman was beside her as always, his presence a steadying force in the storm. But even his calm, commanding aura could not entirely banish the creeping dread. He had sensed it first, a ripple of predatory intent, barely contained but unmistakable. His hand brushed hers, not as a gesture of comfort this time, but as an anchor against the rising chaos. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low, almost swallowed by the fog. "Tonight, we face more than one enemy. Tonight, the world tries to tear us apart." Ella swallowed, the words settling heavily in her chest. She had faced council ridicule, she had faced betrayal, and she had faced predators, but tonight was different. Tonight, she felt the weight of everything converging: the pack stouts, the stranger's obsession, the traitor within, and the growing connection between her and Roman, which now felt like both a lifeline and a target. A sudden sound shattered the tense silence, a snap of wood too close, deliberate, calculated. Ella's wolf surged, sensing multiple presences moving around them. Roman's muscles tensed, his golden eyes scanning the fog. "They're here," he said, voice hard. "Be ready." Before she could respond, shadows erupted from the mist. The silver-haired stranger led them, flanked by two other shifters, their eyes glowing with malice. The ambush was perfect, strategic, ruthless, designed to isolate them. Ella's wolf instincts surged. She shifted partially, letting her wolf form rise in flickers of silver and gold, claws extending, muscles coiling with power. The stranger's grin widened, as if he had expected this. "Impressive," he said, voice smooth and taunting. But not enough. The first attack came like lightning. One of the flanking shifters lunged, aiming straight for Roman. Ella reacted instinctively, placing herself between them. Her claws tore through the air, knocking the attacker aside, but the impact pushed her to the ground. Roman's wolf sprang forward with a feral roar, taking down another. But the numbers were overwhelming. The fog masked movements, allowing their enemies to strike from angles she couldn't anticipate. Her heart raced, fear and adrenaline mixing into a blazing cocktail of survival instinct. A sudden, sharp movement caught Ella off guard. The silver-haired stranger lunged, shoving her to the side, and she collided with the underbrush. Claws, teeth, and shadows collided around her. She barely had time to react as Roman's hand was ripped from hers, pulled away by a predator too strong, too fast. "Roman!" she screamed, her voice cracking in desperation. Her wolf howled in agony, sensing the separation as if a limb had been torn from her body. He shouted her name, golden eyes scanning through the fog, hunting, seeking. But even he was outnumbered, and their enemies used the terrain to their advantage. Ella scrambled to her feet, heart hammering, eyes searching through the thick mist. She could barely see him. The roar of his wolf echoed, followed by a guttural scream as one of the attackers struck him. Pain and fear flooded her senses, and she realized this wasn't just a test. This was an attempt to destroy the bond between them, to isolate her and leave her vulnerable. Ella ducked behind a fallen log, trembling, panting. Her wolf roared in frustration, but the human's fear lingered, threatening to overpower the surge of instinct. Every step she took, every movement, could expose her. Roman's voice echoed faintly in her mind, calling to her, anchoring her. She focused on it, letting it guide her through the chaos. But then silence. Her stomach sank. The golden glow that usually anchored her to him was gone. Panic threatened to consume her. No, this isn't happening," she whispered to herself, trying to steady her shaking hands. The thought of losing him, of failing, of letting him fall, was unbearable. Her wolf growled low, a visceral warning, but even that couldn't erase the suffocating fear that gripped her heart. Alone in the fog, Ella realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about survival. This was about proving to herself that she was more than the weakness the pack had labeled her, more than the prey the stranger expected her to be. She could feel the power simmering beneath her skin, waiting, pulsing with need and fury. She focused, letting the wolf fully rise this time. Her eyes glowed, silver and gold, illuminating the fog. The scent of predator and prey shifted around her as she drew in the air, listening, feeling, sensing. The silver-haired stranger had underestimated her, not her power, not her instincts, not her determination. He had assumed fear would break her. But fear had only sharpened her. She moved through the fog like a shadow, silent and deadly, clawing through the underbrush. Each step was deliberate. Each breath calculated. Every heartbeat drew her closer to Roman, to the center of the chaos, to the fight she had to win, not just for survival, but for love. Roman appeared suddenly, teeth bared, claws extended, wolf fur bristling. Ella's heart leapt. He had survived the ambush, but barely. A deep cut marred his shoulder, blood trickling down his arm. Yet his eyes, golden and fierce, found hers. Relief, pride, and unspoken desire flickered in that gaze, anchoring her even as danger continued to swirl around them. "Ella," he growled, lunging toward her. "Stay close." They fought together, side by side, their movements synchronized, their bond visible in every strike. The stranger and his accomplices were skilled, but the unity of Ella and Roman, their trust and instinct, pushed them beyond what any of their enemies expected. And yet, the odds were overwhelming. More attackers emerged from the shadows, and they were still outnumbered. Exhaustion threatened to pull them down. Every strike, every dodge, every heartbeat was a battle against fatigue, fear, and pain. Emotional intensity and romantic undertones. Amid the chaos, There were fleeting moments that seared through Ella's mind, Roman shielding her with his body, their hands brushing, their eyes locking across the battlefield. Desire, fear, and adrenaline coalesced into something raw and undeniable. A moment came when they found themselves back-to-back, surrounded, each defending the other instinctively. Ella's pulse raced, heart hammering, wolf snarling in tandem with Roman's. "Trust me," he whispered, voice low and intimate, just for her. The words were simple, yet they carried weight. She nodded, letting her instinct and bond guide her. And in that instant, she realized that no matter the danger, no matter the fear, no matter the betrayal, she would fight for him, with him, because of him. But then, chaos erupted anew. A shadowy figure struck from above. Roman roared in pain as the impact threw him to the ground. Ella lunged, but a blade caught her shoulder, searing pain shooting through her. The last thing she saw before she was pulled into the fog by unseen hands was Roman's golden eyes burning into hers, and the silver-haired stranger's grin widening in the darkness. This was no longer just a fight for survival. This was war. And for Ella, the dawn would not bring relief, only the realization that the darkest hour was far from over. The first pale fingers of dawn began to creep through the dense forest canopy, painting the mist in silvers and golds. Ella's body ached, her shoulder burned, her muscles screamed, and yet she moved with purpose. The fog that had swallowed her during the ambush still clung to the ground, twisting shadows into sinister forms, but now she was no longer alone. Roman's presence had returned to her mind like a lighthouse in a storm. Even in the brief separation during the darkest hour, their bond had remained unbroken, guiding her, anchoring her. It was a tether forged of trust, fear, and desire, a force that refused to bend under threat. Her wolf's instincts guided her through the labyrinth of trees, past broken branches, and the faint signs of the enemy's passage. Every sound, every rustle, every whisper of movement sharpened her senses. She could feel Roman before she saw him, golden light piercing through the haze like a beacon of hope. And then, through the fog, she saw him. Roman was kneeling against a fallen tree, breath ragged, one arm pressed against a bleeding wound on his shoulder. His golden eyes, fierce and unyielding, lifted at her approach, and for a moment, all danger, all fear, all chaos faded. "Ella," he whispered, voice hoarse but warm, and in that single word, she felt everything: the relief, the fury, the bond that had kept them tethered through the night. She rushed to him, throwing herself into his arms. The pain of her own wounds faded as her body pressed against his. I thought I lost you," she murmured, face buried in the curve of his neck. Roman's lips brushed her hair, and his voice was low, deep, almost trembling with unspoken emotion. "Never. Not while I live. Not while we're together." Her wolf growled softly, resonating with the unyielding strength that had carried her through the ambush. They clung to each other, a desperate embrace amid the ruins of chaos. It was more than reunion, it was reclamation. They had survived the darkest hour, and that survival had forged something stronger than fear: trust, power, and a bond neither time nor danger could sever. The moment was brief. Roman's sharp eyes scanned the forest, taking in signs Ella had missed: the subtle tracks, broken foliage, and faint ash on the ground. "They're retreating," he murmured, "but not far. And our traitor, they're still watching, waiting for us to make a mistake." Ella's hands flexed, claws twitching unconsciously as the fire in her chest surged. "Then we find them first," she said. "We turn the tables. We end this." Roman nodded. His hand found hers again, squeezing tightly. "Together," he said. "Always together." That word, always, made her chest ache with a mix of fear and desire. Their bond was not just physical or instinctive. It was emotional, psychic even, a connection that allowed them to anticipate each other's movements, to share strategy without words, to fight as one. They moved swiftly through the forest, silent shadows weaving between trees. Roman's wolf sense led them to the first signs of betrayal, a discarded token, a faint footprint, a snapped branch too deliberate to be natural. "It's Kara," Ella whispered, recognition and disbelief mixing in her tone. The council advisor had approached them earlier, warning of the threat. But Roman's instincts had warned him. Something about her had been off, too hesitant, too careful. "She's torn," Roman said, voice low. Fear and loyalty conflict inside her. "But she's the key to finding the others." Ella felt a flicker of doubt. Could they trust her? The thought of betrayal stung, but Roman's confidence steadied her. "Then we approach carefully," she said. "We use what we know, and we trap them before they trap us." As they stalked the forest, the proximity, the shared danger, and the adrenaline created a charged intimacy. Every accidental brush of hands, every shared glance, every protective movement sent shivers down Ella's spine. She could feel Roman's desire, not crude or urgent, but patient, protective, and demanding in a way that made her heart race. At one point, Roman had to steady her as she slipped over a fallen root. Their faces were inches apart, breaths mingling. "Focus," he murmured, voice low, vibrating with intensity. "Now is not the time." And yet, the heat between them was undeniable, a current that neither could ignore. Ella's pulse thrummed with it, and she realized that this bond, tested by fear, strengthened by battle, was also a force of its own, driving them closer, deeper, more intertwined than ever before. By mid-morning, they had reached the clearing where the ambush had originated. Roman signaled her to stay hidden as he scouted, eyes sharp, every muscle coiled for action. Ella watched him, heart hammering. He moved like a predator, precise, lethal, and completely aware of her presence, their bond guiding his every step. They had a plan: draw the traitor out, expose the silver-haired stranger, and reclaim the upper hand. It was dangerous, yes. Nearly suicidal, perhaps. But desperation had sharpened their instincts, and trust had made them stronger than ever. "You ready?" Roman whispered, kneeling beside her. His hand found hers again, squeezing once before letting go. "We do this together. No mistakes." Ella nodded, wolf roaring in agreement. Fear was still there, but it was tempered by determination and the undeniable pull of their connection. As they waited in the shadows, the silver-haired stranger appeared again, flanked by two accomplices. The traitor, Kara, emerged hesitantly behind them, eyes wide, uncertain, caught between loyalty and fear. Roman stepped forward, golden eyes blazing. "It ends now," he said. Ella felt the power within her surge, responding to the intensity of his presence. Her wolf rose fully this time, muscles rippling, claws extended, senses sharp. The stranger's grin faltered as he realized that the pair before him were no longer prey. They were predators. The fight began not with brute force, but with strategy, anticipation, and the bond that allowed them to move as one. Every movement was synchronized, every strike precise, every moment a dance of survival and power. Amid the chaos, there were fleeting moments of intimacy, Roman shielding her, their hands brushing, their eyes locking across the battlefield. Ella's heart raced, not just from fear, but from desire, from connection, from the realization that they were strongest together, not just physically but emotionally. "You're incredible," Roman murmured during a pause in the attack. "Never doubt that." Ella's lips quivered in a half-smile. "Not now," she said. "We finished this first." And yet, even in the heat of battle, the emotional pull between them was undeniable, a tether that strengthened their resolve. By midday, the ambush had been dismantled. The stranger's forces had retreated, the traitor exposed, and the bond between Ella and Roman had grown stronger, tempered by fire and fear. They were battered, bloodied, exhausted, but alive, together and more united than ever. Roman turned to her, hand brushing a streak of blood from her cheek. "This is just the beginning," he said. "But you've shown what I've always known. You're stronger than anyone, even yourself, realizes." Ella felt a rush of warmth, pride, and desire. The darkest hour had passed, and now hope surged. They had survived, reunited, and discovered the truth. And with that clarity came the knowledge that the final confrontation, the climactic battle, was approaching. The silver-haired stranger's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "This ends now, Ella. You've survived until today, but survival is weakness. And weakness dies first." Ella's hands curled into fists, nails pressing into her palms. Weakness. That word had haunted her life, echoing in the halls of the council, whispered in shadows, lingering in every sneer, every laugh, every pointed glance. Now it was a challenge. Now it was a provocation. Roman's hand gripped hers, strong, grounding, unwavering. "Not today," he said, his voice low, feral. "We end this together." The stranger stepped forward, eyes glinting with malice, flanked by the last of his elite fighters. The tension between them vibrated through the clearing, thick and suffocating. Every heartbeat, every breath seemed magnified, amplified by fear and anticipation. Then, like lightning, the battle began. Ella moved first, wolf instincts flaring. She leaped, claws extended, intercepting the stranger's initial strike. Metal and shadow collided, sparks flying as their momentum met. Roman followed instantly, a flanking force of golden fury, teeth bared, eyes blazing, every movement precise. The stranger snarled, a cruel smile twisting his features. "You're fast, but you're predictable," he taunted. Ella's wolf growled, responding to the challenge. She ducked a second strike, pivoted, and landed a blow that sent the stranger stumbling back. Roman's claws raked across another attacker, forcing him to retreat. Even amid chaos, there were moments of connection, Roman brushing her shoulder as they moved side by side, their eyes locking across the battlefield. Sparks of desire and trust ignited amid adrenaline, a silent promise that they would survive together. Kara stepped into view, hesitating, fear evident in her gaze. Her hands shook as she observed the battlefield. For a moment, the enemy and ally lines blurred. Ella's heart pounded. Would she betray them again, or would she finally choose the right side? Ella met her eyes. "You know the right choice," she said, voice steady but commanding. "Help us. Protect the pack. Protect life." Tears welled in Kara's eyes. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped fully into Ella and Roman's side, revealing the hidden tactics and positions the stranger had planned to exploit. The enemy faltered, caught off guard by the unexpected revelation. With Kara's help, Ella and Roman moved as a seamless unit, anticipating every attack, defending each other, striking with precision. Every move of the stranger was countered, every strategy met with intelligence and fury. The stranger's desperation grew. He lunged again at Ella, faster than before, intending to strike a decisive blow. Roman moved instinctively, intercepting, but the enemy was fast, powerful, and cunning. Ella's wolf fully surged, strength, speed, and clarity fusing into one deadly force. She leaped, claws extended, landing a strike that sent the stranger staggering. Her senses sharpened, every breath, every heartbeat, every movement mapped like a predator on a hunt. Even in the heat of combat, their bond pulsed strongly. Roman's hand brushed hers during a maneuver, a fleeting but intimate contact that sent warmth rushing through her chest. Their eyes met, a silent conversation of trust, passion, and shared survival. "You're incredible," Roman murmured in a rare pause, voice barely audible over the clash of battle. "Never doubt yourself." Ella's lips quivered in response, desire and relief mingling. "Focus," she whispered back. "We finished this first." And in that moment, their connection was more than instinct. It was power, synchronization, and a shared determination to survive and triumph. The silver-haired enemy, realizing brute force was failing, unleashed his ultimate strategy. With a surge of mental manipulation, he attempted to destabilize Ella, targeting her fears, doubts, and memories of ridicule from the council. Visions of the past, of being called weak, of the whispers and mockery, crashed over her. Her wolf growled, instincts recoiling, fear threatening to consume her. But then Roman's mind reached hers, a tether of trust and strength. "You are not weak," he growled inside her consciousness. "You are stronger than they ever imagined. Fight with me." Power surged through her, controlled, deliberate, and focused. The enemy faltered, stumbling under the intensity of their united bond. The mind games had failed. Kara's decision was pivotal. Her loyalty wavered, fear battling conscience, but she chose the side of life and justice. By revealing the enemy's plans, she turned the tide of battle completely. The stranger's forces, already disoriented, began to collapse under the coordinated onslaught of Ella, Roman, and Kara. Enemies fled or fell, the battlefield becoming a testament to strategy, strength, and the bond between the two warriors at the center. Now only the silver-haired stranger remained. Every muscle tensed, every instinct primed. He lunged, full of desperation and rage, claws aimed to strike down the alpha heir's mate. Ella intercepted, wolf and human united, striking with a precision and force that stunned him. Roman moved in perfect harmony, closing every avenue of escape, anticipating every attack. The battle was brutal, a symphony of chaos, blood, and raw power. Claws clashed with metal, teeth snapped, and the air pulsed with force. Sparks flew from each collision, the forest echoing with roars and growls, a testament to the intensity of their confrontation. Finally, with a coordinated strike, Ella and Roman immobilized the stranger. He felt his knees, defeated, his grin replaced by disbelief. "You underestimated her," Roman said, voice cold, golden eyes blazing. "You underestimated us." Ella's gaze burned into him. "Weakness is a choice," she said. "And we chose strength." The battle over, the adrenaline fading, the forest silent except for distant pack members, Ella and Roman turned to each other. Bloodied, bruised, exhausted, but alive. Their bond, tested and proven, pulsed between them stronger than ever. Roman cupped her face, thumb brushing a streak of blood from her cheek. "You're incredible," he whispered. "I've never seen anyone like you. Not in 100 lifetimes." Ella leaned into him, voice trembling. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without us." Their kiss was fierce, desperate, passionate, an amalgamation of fear, relief, triumph, and desire. Wolf and human, mates and warriors, united against the world. In that embrace, the chaos, danger, and betrayal of the past hours melted away. With the enemy defeated, the pack gathered. Silence fell, then reverence. Elders who once doubted bowed their heads, acknowledging Ella's power and Roman's wisdom. The council had been shaken, but the pack had survived, and more importantly, so had Ella. The sun fully broke over the treetops, illuminating the clearing, symbolizing a new era for the pack. Their victory was not just survival, but the recognition of true strength and bond. Even as peace settled, vigilance remained. Challenges would come, rivals would rise, and threats would linger. But Ella and Roman had proven themselves, united, unstoppable and prepared for whatever lay ahead. Hand in hand, wolf and human, mates and warriors, they faced the horizon. Their love, bond, and power were unbreakable. Ella whispered softly, "No one will ever call me weak again." Roman smiled, golden eyes glowing, voice warm and low, "And no one will ever underestimate us again." The clearing was calm now, the echoes of battle faded, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant calls of the surviving pack. Sunlight streamed through the branches, casting a warm, golden glow on the wounded but triumphant warriors. Ella stood at the center, blood-streaked and bruised, yet radiating a quiet, undeniable power. Roman was beside her, his hand never leaving hers, golden eyes scanning the pack with a protective intensity that mirrored her own. Together, they had survived the impossible, faced betrayal, fought enemies who underestimated them, and emerged stronger, not just as individuals, but as mates, as leaders, as a force the pack could rally behind. Pack members slowly emerged from the shadows, eyes wide with awe and respect. Those who had doubted her, council elders, warriors who had whispered of her weakness, now looked upon her with reverence. Every sneer, every laugh, every word of doubt had been silenced by the undeniable truth: Ella was not weak. She had survived, she had conquered, and she had led alongside the Alpha King's chosen mate with courage, intellect, and power. Kara approached cautiously, humility and remorse in her posture. "Ella." She began, voice trembling. Ella held up a hand. "You made the right choice in the end," she said softly, her eyes meeting Kara's. "That matters more than your mistakes. The pack will heal because you chose loyalty when it counted." Tears welled in Kara's eyes. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped fully into Ella and Roman's side, revealing the hidden tactics and positions the stranger had planned to exploit. The enemy faltered, caught off guard by the unexpected revelation. With Kara's help, Ella and Roman moved as a seamless unit, anticipating every attack, defending each other, striking with precision. Every move of the stranger was countered, every strategy met with intelligence and fury. The stranger's desperation grew. He lunged again at Ella, faster than before, intending to strike a decisive blow. Roman moved instinctively, intercepting, but the enemy was fast, powerful, and cunning. Ella's wolf fully surged, strength, speed, and clarity fusing into one deadly force. She leaped, claws extended, landing a strike that sent the stranger staggering. Her senses sharpened, every breath, every heartbeat, every movement mapped like a predator on a hunt. Even in the heat of combat, their bond pulsed strongly. Roman's hand brushed hers during a maneuver, a fleeting but intimate contact that sent warmth rushing through her chest. Their eyes met, a silent conversation of trust, passion, and shared survival. "You're incredible," Roman murmured in a rare pause, voice barely audible over the clash of battle. "Never doubt yourself." Ella's lips quivered in response, desire and relief mingling. "Focus," she whispered back. "We finished this first." And in that moment, their connection was more than instinct. It was power, synchronization, and a shared determination to survive and triumph. The silver-haired enemy, realizing brute force was failing, unleashed his ultimate strategy. With a surge of mental manipulation, he attempted to destabilize Ella, targeting her fears, doubts, and memories of ridicule from the council. Visions of the past, of being called weak, of the whispers and mockery, crashed over her. Her wolf growled, instincts recoiling, fear threatening to consume her. But then Roman's mind reached hers, a tether of trust and strength. "You are not weak," he growled inside her consciousness. "You are stronger than they ever imagined. Fight with me." Power surged through her, controlled, deliberate, and focused. The enemy faltered, stumbling under the intensity of their united bond. The mind games had failed. Kara's decision was pivotal. Her loyalty wavered, fear battling conscience, but she chose the side of life and justice. By revealing the enemy's plans, she turned the tide of battle completely. The stranger's forces, already disoriented, began to collapse under the coordinated onslaught of Ella, Roman, and Kara. Enemies fled or fell, the battlefield becoming a testament to strategy, strength, and the bond between the two warriors at the center. Now only the silver-haired stranger remained. Every muscle tensed, every instinct primed. He lunged, full of desperation and rage, claws aimed to strike down the alpha heir's mate. Ella intercepted, wolf and human united, striking with a precision and force that stunned him. Roman moved in perfect harmony, closing every avenue of escape, anticipating every attack. The battle was brutal, a symphony of chaos, blood, and raw power. Claws clashed with metal, teeth snapped, and the air pulsed with force. Sparks flew from each collision, the forest echoing with roars and growls, a testament to the intensity of their confrontation. Finally, with a coordinated strike, Ella and Roman immobilized the stranger. He felt his knees, defeated, his grin replaced by disbelief. "You underestimated her," Roman said, voice cold, golden eyes blazing. "You underestimated us." Ella's gaze burned into him. "Weakness is a choice," she said. "And we chose strength." The battle over, the adrenaline fading, the forest silent except for distant pack members, Ella and Roman turned to each other. Bloodied, bruised, exhausted, but alive. Their bond, tested and proven, pulsed between them stronger than ever. Roman cupped her face, thumb brushing a streak of blood from her cheek. "You're incredible," he whispered. "I've never seen anyone like you. Not in 100 lifetimes." Ella leaned into him, voice trembling. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without us." Their kiss was fierce, desperate, passionate, an amalgamation of fear, relief, triumph, and desire. Wolf and human, mates and warriors, united against the world. In that embrace, the chaos, danger, and betrayal of the past hours melted away. With the enemy defeated, the pack gathered. Silence fell, then reverence. Elders who once doubted bowed their heads, acknowledging Ella's power and Roman's wisdom. The council had been shaken, but the pack had survived, and more importantly, so had Ella. The sun fully broke over the treetops, illuminating the clearing, symbolizing a new era for the pack. Their victory was not just survival, but the recognition of true strength and bond. Even as peace settled, vigilance remained. Challenges would come, rivals would rise, and threats would linger. But Ella and Roman had proven themselves, united, unstoppable, and prepared for whatever lay ahead. Hand in hand, wolf and human, mates and warriors, they faced the horizon. Their love, bond, and power were unbreakable. Ella whispered softly, "No one will ever call me weak again." Roman smiled, golden eyes glowing, voice warm and low, "And no one will ever underestimate us again." The clearing was calm now, the echoes of battle faded, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant calls of the surviving pack. Sunlight streamed through the branches, casting a warm, golden glow on the wounded but triumphant warriors. Ella stood at the center, blood-streaked and bruised, yet radiating a quiet, undeniable power. Roman was beside her, his hand never leaving hers, golden eyes scanning the pack with a protective intensity that mirrored her own. Together, they had survived the impossible, faced betrayal, fought enemies who underestimated them, and emerged stronger, not just as individuals, but as mates, as leaders, as a force the pack could rally behind. Pack members slowly emerged from the shadows, eyes wide with awe and respect. Those who had doubted her, council elders, Warriors who had whispered of her weakness now looked upon her with reverence. Every sneer, every laugh, every word of doubt had been silenced by the undeniable truth: Ella was not weak. She had survived, she had conquered, and she had led alongside the Alpha King's chosen mate with courage, intellect, and power. Kara approached cautiously, humility and remorse in her posture. Ella. She began, voice trembling. Ella held up a hand. You made the right choice in the end, she said softly, her eyes meeting Kara's. That matters more than your mistakes. The pack will heal because you chose loyalty when it counted. Tears welled in Kara's eyes, relief and gratitude mingling. She bowed slightly, acknowledging Ella not as a rival, but as a leader worthy of respect. Roman turned to Ella, his expression softening. You are incredible, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. Not because of the fight, not because of the pack, but because of you. Always you. Ella felt a warmth bloom in her chest, a mix of relief, desire, and love. She stepped closer, her forehead resting against his. I couldn't have done any of it without you. You make me stronger, Roman. Not just in battle, but in everything. Roman's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away a streak of blood from her cheek. And you make me complete, he murmured, lips brushing hers in a slow, lingering kiss. Wolf and human, mate and warrior, they were bound together not only by love, but by the unbreakable bond forged in fire, blood, and trust. The council gathered around, expressions tentative but hopeful. The elders who had once doubted her offered quiet acknowledgments. You have shown the pack what strength truly is, one elder said, voice steady. And you have protected it. Ella and Roman exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They would rebuild, yes, but they would do it together, as partners, as leaders, as mates. The pack had survived the storm, and now it was time for renewal, for healing, for growth. The injured were tended to, wounds bound, spirits lifted. Even those who had participated in the ambush were given the choice: leave or stay and earn redemption through service and loyalty. Ella insisted on fairness tempered with strength. Weakness would not be tolerated, but neither would unnecessary cruelty. Later, as the sun fully rose, casting the clearing in brilliant light, Roman took Ella's hand and led her to a quiet ridge overlooking the forest. Below them, the pack moved like a single, breathing organism, alive and thriving. You see what we've built? Roman asked, his voice low, eyes shining. All of it, because we survived, because we fought, because we believed in each other. Ella nodded, chest swelling. Yes, and it's only the beginning. We'll face threats again, I know it, but as long as we're together, there's nothing we cannot overcome. Roman smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Together, he agreed. Always. They stood there, hands entwined, feeling the weight of everything they had endured, the relief of survival, and the promise of the future. Their wolf senses tingled in harmony, a perfect balance of power, desire, and love. Back at the pack grounds, the council convened with renewed purpose. Plans were made for training, protection, and the restoration of trust within the pack. Ella and Roman took active roles, guiding, mentoring, and ensuring that no member would ever feel powerless or undervalued again. The pack's energy shifted. Where there had once been whispers of doubt, fear, and resentment, there was now respect, admiration, and unity. The Alpha King's mate had proven her strength not through intimidation, but through courage, intelligence, and empathy. The bond between Ella and Roman became the foundation of this new era, a symbol that strength was not just about power, but about love, loyalty, and unwavering trust. Later that evening, after the pack had settled, Ella sat with Roman beneath the stars. Her body was sore, bruised, but her spirit soared. She reflected on everything, the trials, the betrayals, the ambushes, and the council's doubts. Every challenge had been a lesson, every scar a testament to survival. "You've changed me," she whispered, leaning into him. "Not just as a fighter, but as everything I am." Roman tightened his arms around her. "And you've changed me too. You've shown me what it means to be truly bound, not just by duty, but by heart. We're stronger together than apart." Their wolf instincts hummed in agreement, synchronizing their breaths, heartbeats, and souls. For the first time in years, Ella felt complete, not just as a warrior, not just as the Alpha King's mate, but as herself, fully realized, fully empowered, fully loved. The night grew quiet. The pack slept peacefully under the protective gaze of Ella and Roman. The forest, once a place of ambush and fear, now felt alive, safe, and vibrant. Ella rested her head against Roman's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Whatever comes next," she murmured, "we face it together." Roman kissed the top of her head. "Together," he agreed, a promise echoing through the night, binding them as mates, leaders, and soulmates. And as the stars shimmered above, the clearing glowed with hope, love, and triumph. The story of weakness turned to strength, fear turned to courage, and doubt turned to unwavering confidence. Comment below. If you were Ella, would you have survived the ambush without Roman by your side? Glowing Tar, subscribe to Emmy Romance Collections channel for more epic werewolf shifter romances filled with suspense, passion, and emotional journeys like Ella and Roman's.